Wendy Capewell, an experienced counsellor and psychotherapist. I work with so many people who feel that they're the only ones struggling with the issues that they share with me. Possibly, like many of you, they feel so alone. And so the aim of this podcast is to talk to guests who have their own stories to share, their experience of the struggles that they've been through, or maybe they're continuing to live with, offering their insights as well as their inspiring journey. So let me introduce my guest.
Well, this lovely lady and I, Caurel Richards, we've been chatting already about all kinds of things, but it's been wonderful. And she is such a lovely, delightful, warm human being. Caurel Richards, a rapid transformational therapy practitioner. Welcome. And please, can I hand over to you so that you can tell the audience more about you, because you're such a fascinating person.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always such a struggle sometimes telling myself or telling anyone about me, only because I'm like, okay, which version do I tell them about? Because I'm so multifaceted.
Aren't we all?
Yes, we are. So what's coming to me today is, having had the conversation that we had earlier, I would say I'm an intuitive, I am a nurturer. I'm just a lover of life and lover of adventures. And I just want to live in a world, one, that we can accept ourselves, right? Show up as who we are, be authentic, and just live in who we are as people. And that's something that I'm practicing every day, despite the dysfunctions that may exist as a result of, past traumas, because we all have traumas, despite what we want to believe. It's working through what's in my basket. And right now in my basket, I have what some will call CPTSD. And that really is having experienced traumatic experiences for a continuous period. And it somehow has changed how I view the world, right? And of course, I've done the hard, and I mean the really hard work, to change the way that I perceive life. And it's just showing up and showing you that it is possible to live with it, strive with it, and thrive with CPTSD, because within all that chaos, within all that perceived fear is your greatest gift. So hopefully I do get that across today with you guys.
Yes, I thank you for sharing that, because you're right, it is. Complex PTSD is a really difficult one to live with. And as you say, I guess as children, many of us will have experienced trauma to one degree or another.
Yeah.
And we carry that into our adulthood, into our relationships, everywhere. And I think it's we were talking earlier about how interesting it is to kind of explore that, delve into it, discover it. But it can be really painful too.
It is painful. It's not that it can be, it is painful, because you're rehashing things that you've perceived to have happened in the past, things has actually happened in the past, and it's bringing you back to a space where you felt hopeless, you felt helpless, you didn't have the tools, you didn't have the words, and you also didn't have the support, right? So as adults, we do have, well, some of us still have the tools, but at the same time, when you get back to that younger version of yourself, it's almost like you're stunted. And with CPTSD, it's not just a physical thing. It really is how your mind is wired. So you have to subconsciously rewire your mind to see things differently, because it can really push you in a direction where you are stuck in a corner with nowhere to go, because you feel so hopeless, you feel so helpless, and you feel so powerless to what is happening around you, not realizing that it really just starts with how you're perceiving, how you're thinking. And in changing how you're thinking, you could see it differently, because your thoughts are connected to what you're feeling. Your feelings are connected to, how you show up and the events that you are in fact experiencing.
Yeah, and that really does take a lot of work.
Yes, and it's a lifelong journey. A lot of people will say, oh, I've overcome CPTSD. And I'm like, well, that's great for you. I know that it's something that's going to exist until I die. And I've made peace with that. It exists, but it doesn't mean that it takes over my life. It means that I get a light bulb moment that says, okay, even this morning, I was telling you, this morning I had to separate the facts from what I was telling myself. And when I put the facts down and I isolated the facts alone, I was like, well, this isn't such a bad situation. This is actually acceptable. And then I looked at the thoughts that I was saying to myself, and I'm like, okay, this is why I feel icky. This is why I feel so bad about the situation. This is why I feel guilty. And this is why I feel like I'm on the verge of being abandoned. When the truth is, that's not necessarily true if you look at what's actually happening versus what you're telling yourself is happening.
Yeah, it's that kind of hard wiring.
Yeah. So when you experience someone that has CPTSD, it's not that they want to be this way. It's what happens it's a developmental flaw, I'll say. And I've accepted that developmental flaw because I can't do anything about it, right? It happened, right? Yeah. And I had no control over that. So what I do have control over is me today and the effort that you have to put into change those beliefs that you have about yourself. Because the belief that I had this morning is that I'm unsafe. And the truth is I wasn't unsafe. If you looked at it from, the factual information, I wasn't unsafe, but it's the thoughts that I was injecting into the situation that made me feel unsafe. Yeah, so you have to just question the stories that you're telling yourself. Because those narratives can really send you down a pathway of destruction. And it's not to say that the people that you're interacting with aren't doing things. They're simply just having their own experiences. And I happen to somehow attract people that also have CPTSD and they don't know that they have it. So it's navigating your own and also understanding, of course, because I'm a therapist or a practitioner, I automatically also go into the mode of, okay, I wonder what's going on with them. And also navigating what's happening with me sometimes gets very, very tricky.
Yeah. So that does make it doubly tricky because you're trying to deal with your own stuff and then attempting to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and their understanding. And that happens. I think that happens a lot in relationships because people have their own stuff. I mean, I would say we bring all our baggage and we collect it as we go along. We start as children, then we collect a bit more and a bit more into relationships, whether it was friends at school, whether it was teachers, whether it was other relationships, whoever. Work colleagues, bosses, everything. And we collect that and it's a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. And then we bring that into our current relationships. Absolutely. And we forget that they've got that as well.
Yeah, and it gets so convoluted, it gets so confusing. And that's where the chaos comes in. It's when you can't separate what is actually happening with you versus, what may be happening with another person. And relationships are hard for people with CPTSD. I'm not even going to sit here and pretend it's the easiest thing. It's very, very hard because when you live in a state of perpetual fear, your mind is wired to want to make you feel safe. Without a doubt. It's just a human thing. And if you tell yourself something that automatically it interprets that you're unsafe, it's going to give you everything it needs to give you to get you away from that situation. Right. And I think it's very important to acknowledge what your attachment style is as well.
Oh, yes.
it plays a crucial part in how you show up in relationships, you know, whether you're secure, whether you're an anxious, whether you're avoidant. Knowing your attachment style is so crucial because that allows for you to get to know you, right? And how you show up in that relationship. And you realize, oh my God, wow, that explains how I respond to situations, you know?
So yes, we got a little bit distracted then because cameras were misbehaving. But yeah, we were just talking about that attachment style. And I think you're so right, because I know that my kind of attachment style, the way I've had to learn to function in the world, is very much about, I can't rely on anyone, so I'm going to be independent. Therefore, that means that having that close relationship can be quite scary. So there's a anxiety as well, so that gets into the mix as well. But that is no, I need to keep myself safe. So it is the avoidant part, and there's ambivalence. I mean, I would say I've got a little bit of all those different attachment styles mixed in there somewhere. But it's fascinating to notice it, identify it, and then the people that we interact with, if we have enough understanding. I mean, John Bowlby, this was the 1940s that he developed this and acknowledged it. And when I was in training, we had 3 huge volumes to study: attachment, separation, and loss. And thank goodness our tutor said, I'm going to split you into 3, and you're going to study 1 section each and then present it all together. Because reading those textbooks by him was such heavy going, and there was so much research, there was so much case study, wading through that. But actually it was really hard. It was hard, but actually understanding a bit more of that was really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I could relate to when you said, okay, you became very self-sufficient, and at the same time, so it sounds like to me the disorganized,
probably
avoidance. Yeah, and I can relate to that. And that's the thing, there's no shame in saying that is your attachment style. To say that you are not secure, it's not a shameful thing. And I say this because I'm coming from that. I thought, well, if I'm disorganized, if I'm not secure, then something is wrong with me. It's not that there's something wrong with you. It's giving you an understanding of why you show up the way you show up. You are predisposed to certain behaviors that formulated how you form beliefs. You know, beliefs that you have about yourself, that you're not enough, that you can't trust people, that you're unsafe, that you're unimportant. Those beliefs came from somewhere. It's just now understanding that, 1, they're not true. They may have felt true at the time, but it's not true. And 2, is telling yourself better stories, or having better thoughts to ensure that you don't go down that rabbit hole of thinking that, because it's the thoughts that are getting in our way of how we perceive things, right? Because my situation this morning, it's the person told me that they weren't able to have a conversation with me at the time that I needed to have a conversation. And the thought was, I'm unimportant. Right? And it's not that they didn't want to, they weren't feeling well. Those were the facts. They weren't feeling well. And isolating the facts, I was like, well, that makes sense. Like, if you're not well, you're just not well, and it's just not the time to have the conversation. But the thought came in, I am unimportant. And then it's, well, if I'm unimportant, then I'm going to be abandoned. You know, and it's just how it happens. Right? And you have to consciously make the effort to say, that's not true. And it will be emotionally havocing on your body and your emotions. And it gets really intense, but it's sitting in that moment and not projecting that onto the other person, because really looking at it from a factual standpoint, they didn't do anything wrong. They were just telling you their truth and what's going on with them. And it means nothing about you. But that is the trauma that is attached, where you make things very much about you, take it personally because of the beliefs that you have. And it's rooted in where we come from as kids. And like I said, we're predisposed to these things. And it's just acknowledging those things and accepting that this is your starting point. You are behind the line, and that is okay. There's no shame in being behind the line. It's working your way towards being at that starting point, or even beyond that, or just accepting where you are and taking it one day at a time.
Yes, and I think that's something I've certainly learned, and I'm continuing to learn at times. I can as a child, I always say that I had my antennae up. I was always waiting for that, whatever was going to happen. So very hyper vigilant, but that made me into a sensitive person. Yeah. And then I was told, oh, you're oversensitive. You take things too personally. And I really felt bad about that. Yeah. It was, well, you must be a bad person then. And then I went, no, that's okay. Because that's actually my superpower as well.
Thank you for saying that. So thank you so much for saying that, and you have to own that. Have to own that.
Yeah. The technology has been against us a bit today, but we're going through it. Well, we are going to come to an end because although we could talk a lot more, I think we're acknowledging that maybe the universe is telling us something, that this is enough. So, Caurel, I would just ask you now, what is one thing that people could take away with themselves right now?
Be kind to yourself.
Oh.
It's something I've repeated before, but be kind to yourself. What happened to you isn't your fault. It's simply your responsibility now to make different choices, knowing that you do have the control now. You do have the power now. And I know you may feel powerless in this moment, but I can tell you wholeheartedly, the power lies in how you process your thoughts, and just being kind to yourself and the things that you're saying to yourself. Those things will take you a far way. Kindness. It's easy to show kindness to others, but somehow we have a hard time being kind to ourselves. But just have it start with you and just how you show up in this world, and that will lead you to your optimal healing. Is accepting, one, that you are who you are right now, and that's not your final stop. There's so much more out there for you if you just give yourself a shot.
Such great words. Thank you for that. And I'm going to put all your details in the show notes of how people could get in touch with you. But one easy way, Caurel.
Instagram. It's In Divine Thyme, and that's INDIVINETHYME.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope the listeners have too. So thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you've shared today.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. And I do hope the listeners got some value out of our conversation.
I hope you found this episode interesting as well as helpful. Do get in touch if you would like to learn more about working with me. My email address is info@wendycapewell.co.uk. Take good care of yourself. Until next time.